This graph right here is optional. I call this the cheater graph. We use the cheater graph and then we go to the scaled graph. It makes our job easier when we start graphing these trig functions. This guy is basic. He's simple. Okay, and that's how we should start. We should start out basic and simple. If you guys go towards the end, you see we get more complicated. There's a lot of things happening right here. And when we get to this guy, the cheater graph is going to be really helpful. Really helpful. So, I know it's going to seem kind of like dumb to do this cheater graph at the beginning, but it's very important that you get used to it from the beginning. Okay? You guys got that? You copy? All right. So, the cheater graph. First thing you got to do, you got to be able to identify your amplitude. The amplitude is always a number multiplying to the sine. So, I'm going to put a 3 right here. The period is affected by the number that is multiplying to the x. You can see there's no number multiplying to the x. So what is the normal period for the mother function? That is 2 pi. Now 2 pi is the same as 360 degrees, but we're going to use radians. We're not going to use degrees. So then we put 2 pi right there, and now you can do this stuff down here. The phase shift is also something that adds to x. In fact, let me write this down for you guys right now. This is kind of notes right here. So this is the general form of a sine function. So if you guys are looking at the template, it's usually A, sine, and then this part's kind of weird, B, parenthesis, x minus h, parenthesis, then big parentheses, and then plus k. You guys see some guys that are familiar? H and K? Yeah, you remember how H moves horizontally and the K moves vertically? The same thing happens here. Now the B I think is the weirdest. But sometimes there's not a 1 right next to the X. If there's not a positive 1 next to the X, you got to factor out a B. Even if it's a negative 1, you got to factor them out. This is the best way to look at trig functions. If you look at every trig function like this, then you can do all of them with ease. Okay? What does the A affect? What does the he affect? The amplitude, period, phase shift? Amplitude. What does the B affect? He affects the period. What does the H affect? Yeah, we're calling that a phase shift, or you can say horizontal shift, okay? And then K, that would move the function up and down, and that would change your maximums. Well, the K and the A, they would be the ones that change your extrema, your maxes and your mins. Okay, so we got a really simple function. We only have a 3 right here. So because our period is 2 pi, and because there's no phase shift, you write 0 and then 2 pi. Now, if I divide 2 pi up into 4 sections, you know, this section, this section, this section, this section, do you guys know what would these x values be? This middle one would be pi. This would be pi over 2. And, ooh, what's this one? You should recognize those angles. Those are known as quadrantal angles when you guys are looking at the unit circle. Now, normally, don't graph this. Normally, sine goes like this. It goes midline, max, midline, min, midline. That's normally what sine does. Right? Okay? But because the amplitude is 3, we're going to go up 3, midline, down 3, midline. And so this is what your function looks like. All right, so there's my cheater graph, people. My cheater graph. Now, let's go over to the scaled graph and graph it. All right, we have 0 right there. This looks like it's pi over 2, and so we're going to go up to 1. And then we have pi, and we have 3 pi over 2, and then back to 2 pi. So this one is scaled. And the rest of the information should be really simple for you guys to figure out. What's my y-intercept? It's 0. What are my x-intercepts? We could say 0. Wow, I made a big old mistake right there. Yeah, it doesn't go down 1 and up 1. It goes up 3. So I got to put a dot there. Good look. Man, you guys do think. Man, you guys are impressing me. What? There was no sarcasm in that. All right, so what is my y-intercept? 0. My x-intercepts, 0, pi, and 2 pi. Phase shift, I'm going to say 0 because there's no h. What's my maximum? My maximum is at 3, and my minimum is at -3.